Welcome to EVONA Origin Stories, the space podcast where we bring you extraordinary leaders from within the sector as we explore their fascinating stories of early life, career, and how they broke into the space industry. We're joined by a very special guest on the podcast this week as we sit down with Melissa Quinn, the recently appointed General Manager of Seradata. Born and bred in the heartland of rural Canada, Melissa was immersed in the world of aerospace from a very young age. From her small-town roots, her love for global aerospace markets and economics propelled her across the world to the prestigious London School of Economics. There, she honed her skills and earned a master's degree in economics, laying the foundation for what would turn out to be an extraordinary career. As an accomplished strategic leader with over 13 years in aerospace, Melissa is dedicated to shaping the industry with a vision that is both ambitious and purposeful. She is a strong influence in the push for the sustainable use of space for good, as well as a passionate advocate of inspiring the next generation to pursue STEAM careers. Melissa's story is one of passion and perseverance, so stay tuned as we delve into her incredible career journey, as well as her vision for the future of the industry.
Hello.
Hello. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. Sorry, I didn't see a link, so I was like something like, oh.
No, that's completely. I'm so excited to be talking to you. I've heard from Ross and a few other people in the team about the amazing work that you've been doing. It's safe to say that you're definitely a female leader and very much a trailblazer in the industry. And I'm just really excited to hear. I've heard a bit from your TED talk about the childhood that you had and what your parents did. Such an amazing. I can so see how that would have inspired you to do what you do today.
Yeah, you don't really think about it when you're, growing up, but then obviously when you're an adult until you start to think, well, what made me, react in this way or not in that way? And then you think about back then and it realize how much it did have an impact.
Yeah, exactly. Well, then maybe we should start at the very beginning, if you don't mind. Jump straight in.
Yeah, so I grew up in the middle of nowhere, basically in Canada. And I had a very, very wild and wilderness experience as a childhood. It was very much filled with the outdoors. My mom was a park ranger. My dad fought forest fires using water bombing airplanes. So very much based on kind of natural resources. There's a lot of small towns in Canada. I really wanted to be a pilot and fly. I loved aviation so much and aircraft, and loved learning about the different kinds of aircraft that were out there. But my eyesight was not very good, so that wasn't a possibility for me. And I quite quickly, like many teenagers growing up in small towns, you want to get out and see the big wide world. And so the university I went to was in Vancouver, and I studied economics. But I absolutely loved learning about different marketplaces, how aerospace economies could work together. So I got quite niche into understanding the aviation markets around the world. And that led me to my master's at London School of Economics, which was my ultimate dream school to go to. And again, continued to specialize in aerospace economics, and then was brought down to Cornwall after that to help the airport, which had just been bought by the council from the MOD, and they were looking for somebody to kind of help develop the aviation business side of it. So not the passenger services, but more the future technologies, how we could use this incredible asset to attract business, but also to grow businesses on the site, grow the skill base here in Cornwall, and really kind of grasp the economic opportunity that aerospace brings.
That's amazing. I can really see how that it's so interesting how you had that, as you said, the kind of like very much growing up experiencing kind of the wilderness and the incredible jobs that your parents had, and to end up in Cornwall making such an impact on the industry. It's just so nice to kind of hear that, the short excerpt of how you, from where you started to where you are now. So now that you're very much embedded into the industry and you're having such a huge impact, am I right in saying you're the first female director of a spaceport in the world?
Yeah, I mean, I keep saying that and nobody's argued it. I think now Kennedy obviously has a woman there, and I think there's few dotted around now, but Yeah, I mean, there's definitely not very many. If
No, well, if
at
no one's
all.
disputed it, claim the title. I think that's very well deserved. 100%. So now you're very much kind of embedded into the industry, with the various kind of influences over your life that have led you to where you are today. What is it that you love the most about the space sector and the work that you're currently doing?
So coming from the aviation side, so I obviously started my career more with the traditional aviation, and I would pretty much often be the only female in the room. And then with the space industry, when I started there, it was like, there's so much more work to be done, but it felt like there was such an up and coming kind of group of people in the industry that were diverse from different backgrounds, lots more women, younger people, and for me it just felt like such a great energy to and a time to be part of it. The commercialization of space, obviously, as we all know, and the new space sector coming through, it just brings all these different characters into it, and you go to the conferences and exhibitions and it feels buzzy, it feels like there's so much going on. And so I love that side of it. I also love how inspiring the space industry is and how it can be such an incredible tool to engage with young people. It's so easy to go and talk to kids about how exciting space is because it's their future. It really is something that they will day-to-day life be using or exploring themselves. And so for me to feel like we're at the almost edge of that, like maybe like my parents were at the edge of the internet. I feel like we're now, as my career is growing, at the edge of this boom in what's going on in space. And for me to be that like conduit between the industry and young people is probably my most favorite thing about the sector.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there that that we're on the precipice of such exploration and achievement and things that we're doing in the space industry. And it's really interesting to hear how you had experiences being the only woman in the room, and that kind of now going on to speaking to kids about how space is the future, because that is the thing that a lot of, I think, especially young people don't necessarily have the understanding that space, a huge majority of the space industry is about improving life on Earth, and monitoring agriculture and the oceans and the climate, and even as far as Uber, and you'll use the amount of times that you use like satellite technology before you leave the house. It's something that I think a lot of people don't have, and it's really important. That's why we love having female leads in the sector like you on here, so that we can kind of discuss this. And also, it's as we're going back to the, saying that the experience of being the only woman in the room is unfortunately quite a few people's experience that they have. And we're really here trying to promote the, representation as a way of increasing kind of accessibility in the industry, and also demystifying it because of how many different elements of our everyday life it affects. And that, I think that lack of understanding often makes a lot of people, especially young people, think that there's no place for them in the industry because they don't, they're not, if, when we're really focusing on STEM from a really technical angle, that does unfortunately alienate a lot of people. And we do really think that, the constant, a really hot topic in the industry at the moment is this kind of battle for good talent, and the talent that we need to kind of keep the industry advancing and thriving into the future, so it can continue to serve us in all the ways that it already is doing as we speak and every day behind the scenes. We think, kind of going back to speaking about younger people and STEM initiatives and how we can kind of get them inspired. We think that we need to be impacting this change at a much younger age, and also kind of, approaching it in different ways and hands-on ways, and presenting it in different ways that can engage as many young people and people of all ages with different skill sets, as many as we can, to get involved and give all of the incredible things they have to offer to the sector. So from your experience and in your opinion, what do you think we could be doing differently kind of at this younger STEM level to be inspiring the next generation of the industry?
I think from our experience, and my own personal kind of views on it is, we know how exciting space is and the technologies, and I go to conferences and every time I'm like, wow, I can't believe this is happening. But I think up until very recently, their space industry's not been very good at communicating that to the average person or to young people. It's been almost like purposely indigestible for some reason. It's almost like that space is for the very smart and clever people, and you have to have a PhD to even start to understand what's going on. So for everybody else, just maybe use it from time to time, but you're not really going to understand it. And we're not going to make any effort to really try and explain it to you. And that has to change for many different reasons. But for me, it's about how can we communicate the benefits of space to a wider demographic of people, a wider audience, so that they can be part of it. And so for me, it comes down to communication and how we're communicating it using different types of people to even help us communicate it. Artists, for instance. So we try and work with designers that don't work in the space industry, and can help us express what we're doing in a way that's a bit more engaging to a wider audience. I think that we need to do, again, a better job of the industry of opening and helping open the doors for a more diverse kind of group of people coming in. And obviously I'm a female myself, I'm a mom. It's been really challenging to try and to do that. And a lot of women I speak to in the industry struggle with, how we can do childcare at the same time. And I know this goes across lots of different industries, but it's something that we do need to talk about, and really start to kind of step up for one another, and kind of push that through. Because when you're talking to young girls, we had 400 young girls up on site last week with tech girls, trying to inspire young girls into it. They've got to see the whole picture and how their life would fit into that in the future. And that I have my daughter there to show, like, you look, I can have my family alongside, and the working environments have changed, and we need to make sure that we're ensuring that women can go and crush it in the workplace at the same time as being there for their families too. And that's really important, I think, to show young girls, put role models in front of them that I never had. I think I remember like one guy coming in to talk about engineering, and he was the most like uninspiring person probably I've ever met. And he just kind of was like, oh, this. Oh, hey, boys, do you want to come and help me with this? There was absolutely no like, and that's the only time I can think of in my whole young life that I ever even saw anybody come in and talk about a career in STEM. So being a role model, going into the schools, showing them, that you don't have to look a certain way to come into this industry. And then finally, I would say it's really showing everybody that you don't need to be an astrophysicist anymore to get into the space industry, and actually thinking the space industry is not its own separate thing. It covers so many different industries and different areas of interest. So if they're into agriculture or medicine or transport, that in the future, actually, they could use space in their day-to-day job. So opening up everybody's eyes to the fact that there's so many different opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. That really reminds me of an internal debate at EVONA that is constantly ongoing, that everything arguably is every industry really today. It can be argued, and it is often argued, but every industry is a space, is really, if you frame it in a certain angle, even Tesco supermarkets, they're all utilizing space technology. And that just really goes to kind of show the impact that, I think that what we say is, some of us that do agree, we say, okay, if you take away space technologies from these companies, can they still perform their core function? And a lot of the times they can, but you do kind of have to make adjustments for that lack of technology that they would have. And it really just goes to show how kind of far reaching the industry is. And you're completely right there that we need to, communicate in a more accessible way for people that aren't necessarily looking to pursue a degree in science, technology, engineering, and maths, and make it accessible and digestible to show them that it is possible to them, and give them these kind of role models to look up to. So kind of in the same note as this, something we like to touch on in the essence of truly being transparent and communicating what it's genuinely like to have a career in the industry, and not necessarily just promoting the end product, which we think a lot of people kind of tend to do with, social media and the internet. People really promote their highlights of successes and the product of their work, but they don't always promote the work that went into that and the processes that led up to that moment. And we do think that it can be quite damaging to people who are maybe considering starting a career in the industry, to kind of, that we're not giving them the full honest timeline. So kind of on that kind of note, we like to touch on failures and achievements. I'll phrase it as a learning curve, which I think is more a bit of a nicer way to say it. But what would you say in your career so far has been your biggest kind of learning moment, and what you took from that, what happened, and then on a more positive side, what is your biggest career achievement to date?
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think if anybody follows along my social media, you see the good, the bad, the ugly. I try and be pretty open and honest about what my day-to-day life is like, because I think if you're trying to show perfection all the time, it makes it seem so unachievable. And we've got to show that you can do it, but it is hard. And so for me, it's been really important to kind of show every angle of it, and really talk about, where things are hard. And again, going back to what I said earlier, it's definitely not easy. It's not easy being a female in the industry, definitely not. But if we tell the stories, then at least we feel like we're in it together, and you kind of get a little bit more like a feeling of support, to keep going, and motivation. So that's been important, for me to do, just even as a person, to never show perfection on any of my social media. Definitely not. My
Yeah.
biggest failure, I guess, was well, I guess for me, we had a failure, an actual real one, with Cosmic Girl and our launch with Virgin Orbit, and the satellites not getting to their final place. But I actually don't see that as a failure, because the way that I feel like we handled it was actually probably one of my biggest achievements, in the fact that within a half an hour after learning it, a decade of work had basically ended in that way, that I could go and face the customers and go and speak to the media and be quite vulnerable about what that meant, and also again, really hit home the message that failure isn't always a bad thing, and actually you can learn from it, and it can actually make you more resilient in the future. So flipping on its head, actually, the failure that people probably expect me to say is probably one of the things I'm most proud of how we handled, and we're open and kind of pretty vulnerable about that, because it's actually helped us with all our outreach going forward with the young people, talking about resilience and grit and how to come back from adversity. So for me, that's actually a big positive. I guess failure for me is more around maybe not being very confident in myself, especially leading into the kind of launch, which I think I just maybe felt like how could I be in the same room as some of these people who've been in the industry for 35 years? A bit of the imposter syndrome that especially women tend to get. But being a young woman, being in the role that I was, in a room full of men at the level of their career that they were at, I felt I kind of was quite maybe not who I am. And I feel like that was a failure, because actually once I got used to it, I was like, actually, no, wait a minute. What I want to say is valid. And so I did start to say what was on my mind, or what my thoughts were, or my solutions to a problem. And so for me, that was probably my biggest failure, was a period of time where I maybe felt like I shouldn't be in the room. And I think for most women, you're there for a reason. And actually, the way things that are being done or have been done for the last 50 years by the same kind of group of people, yes, we're advancing in some ways, but in a lot of ways we're not. And so we need different ways of thinking about things to help us solve some of these global challenges. And I think a lot of those solutions will come from people that have not been at the table before. And so I think, again, taking that kind of failure of myself, feeling that I'm not should be at that table, is probably one thing that I would go back and be like, no, shake myself a bit and be like, no, you're here for a reason. Like, be confident in that.
Yeah, completely. I think that's so really key that, you say that this kind of advancement and the progression is going to come from the people who haven't been at the table before, because I think pretty much all of us are in agreement that, that we do need to push kind of diversity and be inclusive of people from all backgrounds, you know, visible and invisible diversity elements, you know, is about kind of where you come from as well, and these skills and experiences you have, and, you know, even your level of education, and just even your experiences kind of leading up to there are going to shape your opinions, and which are so valid. But I think when you feel that you are the minority in a room, it's easy to feel drowned out by the other voices, and in your head that can equate to, oh, what I'm saying is completely invalid. But maybe if you're not, maybe you're just, you know, maybe you're just the first person who's brought that up, and that doesn't mean it's invalid. Maybe it's what they've been missing when they've been talking themselves into a corner, because everyone kind of comes from similar backgrounds, experiences, you know, and belong to similar demographics. It's, you know, I think having that kind of different voice and that different opinion is so valuable. And I think that we need to be continuing to kind of promote how valuable that is and how much the industry really needs it. And I really love that, you know, you kind of tied in the failure and the achievements together, because that's really the essence of it, really, isn't it? That failure is inevitable, but true failure is not learning from your mistakes, and I guess repeating them over and over again. So yeah, I really love that response from you. So kind of in a similar arm here, what's something else we like to do is, after we kind of touched on the failures and achievements, we like to give some really tangible pieces of advice to anyone that we've kind of struck a chord with that's listening, and is, you know, that voice inside themselves is getting a little bit louder and they're starting to believe in themselves a bit more. So kind of throughout the years where you've been transitioning into the industry, some of, you know, we said the challenges you've come up against and the things that you've learned from them, something that always comes up that is really important is kind of the resources that you've identified over the years, whether that's, you know, courses, programs, or a lot of the time it's mentors and people, because I think especially within space, the community that you have from people in the industry is just so incredible, and the way people kind of build you up. So yeah, what would you say is the best resource, whether that's, as I said, courses, programs, people, anything that have kind of helped you transition into the position you're in today?
A few things. I would say looking outside the industry, and especially at the creative sectors, hospitality. And I know that sounds a bit strange, but at the end of the day, the space industry comes down to a lot of the times that the client management, customer service. And so for me, it's identifying, you know, some of these other industries, how they manage customers and clients, as well as their products. So a product journey and a customer journey. And some other industries do it like so well. And again, space has almost relied on itself, that it's, oh, hey, we're space, just deal with our conditions in a way. And I'm like, no, actually, there's another way to do this. So when you come to our site, it feels different, and there's a journey to it, and it makes you feel almost emotive. And that was really important to me, to kind of take things from other industries and put them in. I was lucky enough, you know, to do a TED Talk. So when I went there, of course, it's really exciting to do your own, but I was just like, hey, you know, this is the creme de la creme of people from all different industries. I want to hear how they approach leadership, and I want to hear how they approach their challenges. So again, for me, it's been really big to kind of look outside, and I'm you know, my team, we've been purpose led. I really believe in purpose and identifying what your purpose is, and almost that's your Bible. You live by that, and you filter every decision you have through it. And, you know, early days, I read some really amazing books. Simon Sinek obviously does a lot on that, but David Hyatt from Hyatt Denham in Wales does the Do books and Do lectures, and there's just incredible kind of a library there of great books. And really, when I took the head role on, I really kind of got into a lot of that. It's how do you get a small team to be so driven to deliver something historic, with not loads of support, not being paid loads of money, but how do you, you know, inspire them to really go for it? And so for me, that was fundamental. And then, you know, 100% mentors. I'm so lucky to you know, work with some of the most talented people in the sector. And I've met, you know, every politician you can imagine in the UK in the last few years, and some of, you know, Sir Richard himself, and, you know, all these types of people. But I think the mentors come from different places maybe you don't expect. And, you know, I'm so lucky to have worked with somebody like John Paffett, who's, you know, one of the the OGs, as I say, of the space industry, and he's been so kind and supportive of me, and I just have all these champions of me as a leader. And then the women in the industry, you stick together, and I'm so again lucky to call a lot of them personal friends now, and we get together at the conferences, and we tend to have a breakfast and just hear what each other up to, and some of them have just been again great champions. I think surrounding yourself with people that believe in you, but challenge you 100%, but really do believe in you is so important. And so when you kind of set that purpose in your head, and if for any of the people listening to this and they want to be in the space industry, think about why you want to be in it, what do you want to add to it, and then filter everything through that, every decision you make through that, whether it's financial or recruitment. And so for me, that's been vital to kind of really building a team, as well as that wider network around me to kind of to lift us to what we achieved here at Spaceport.
Yeah, absolutely. I really love that's something that we always talk about at EVONA is purpose. And, that is so key in the space industry. If you have a true passion for what and like a vision of what you want to do and what you want to achieve, that it truly resonates with you as a person and the things that you want to achieve. I think that, if you, as you said, use it as your Bible, filter everything through that purpose. And if you keep that, if you really stick to that, steadfast stay to it, you just stick to that passion, follow your purpose, you're going to do some incredible things. And I truly believe that if you genuinely believe in yourself and you really have that passion and that drive, you'll get there. And I love, that I think speaking about having a small but driven team, that is, I think, what I find the most inspiring about the industry is when we speak to these people who work for companies who are doing mind-blowing projects that they're doing that, 5-10 years ago were unfathomable. And it's more often than not, I see it as these really kind of small, really close teams. And when you kind of look at behind the scenes videos and, videos of what's going on when they're explaining the work, you can just see how happy they are to be there and how they're all such good friends. And it's this genuine, it's the way that, this industry kind of brings people together with just a genuine passion for exploration and also the benefit of humanity and how we can kind of keep advancing. That is when, something really incredible and kind of magical happens, I think, is when those people kind of find each other and then they kind of, create a joint purpose that you can then work to together. I think that is a really incredible thing about the industry. I think you're completely right there. So Melissa, we're coming to the end now, but I've really enjoyed hearing about your story and how you've got to where you are today. I'm so always keeping up with the work you're doing, so inspirational, the things you're doing, and just really it's been incredible to kind of hear, what led you to today. So in our kind of, this is a closing piece of advice for anyone listening, kind of also drawing back on how we've spoken about the importance of non-technical professions in the industry. What is your kind of closing piece of advice that you'd give to someone from either a technical or a non-technical background who is looking to enter into the space sector?
Yeah, I guess it's just keep that open mind to work with one another, and that you need both to really make a business or a project work really well. And I think the space industry is focused so much on the technical side. Of course it should, because of what it is.
Yeah.
But bringing in non-technical people to really just turbo it and to add the fuel to it is so fundamental these days, to build a brand that people want to believe in. We're going to space, we're taking humans to other planets, we're helping save this planet with what we do. That is so inspirational. I can't think of another industry that has those ambitions. And going back to what you said about it's a leveler because we're all in it for the same reason. And I do remind people when we get to challenging conversations, like, why are we here? And so for me, it's like, if you're really passionate about this industry, no matter what you do, whether you're a musician or you're an engineer, whatever it is, like, see where you fit into it and go for it. And there's so many different jobs in the industry now. Get creative with your passion and your beliefs of how you can really help benefit the space industry, and I guarantee you there will be a job out there for you. We're just recruiting an intern to help us with creating a cultural program for Spaceport Cornwall, so identifying how the local culture of Cornwall can connect to space. So it just goes to show you there's so many different things out there, and just be really creative and open-minded. to the opportunities.
Yeah, I love that. That is for anyone listening right now that's thinking, that if we've totally changed your minds a bit whether a space career is for you, I think, that quote from you, see where you fit into the industry, go for it and get creative with your passion. I think that's a pretty foolproof plan, to be honest, for anyone that, thinks that their skills and talents maybe don't fit into the industry. If you just really look into the possibilities out there, I think you'll prove yourself wrong pretty quickly, and you'll be very surprised with the kind of opportunities that are available to you.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. And we need more people. So, it's such a exciting time to be part of it. But we definitely need more people to get excited by it and to feel like it is for them. And that's my absolute passion in life, is to go out and to just bring this amazing industry to life and to engage more people. So hopefully together we'll get there.
Yeah, completely. We're right there with you on that mission. And, hopefully through conversations like this and sharing, conversations around the possibilities in the industry and, also the challenges and how you can kind of overcome them. Hopefully, people won't be hitting so many kind of bumps along the road, and hopefully we're gonna make the industry wide open to everyone who would like to contribute and, kind of demystify it in that way and make it as accessible as possible so that we don't scare anyone off with really technical jargon that might
Yes.
actually have something really amazing to contribute to the industry.
Absolutely. I'm the first one to say, what? What is that? What's that acronym?
Yeah.
So,
Oh, I know so many acronyms. That's one thing. Anyone looking to join the industry, get ready to learn many an acronym.
yeah.
Absolutely. Right, Melissa. Well, thank you so much for your time. I've really enjoyed meeting you and speaking with you. And thank you so much, yeah, for kind of breaking down your journey and giving us an insight into how you got to where you are today to be doing the incredible work you're doing. And we're really excited for what we're going to see from you next.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys. You guys are such an inspiration as well, what you're doing in the industry and shaking it up a bit. So love it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Oh, we try. Well, pleasure's been all mine. Really appreciate you taking the time out today.
No worries. Thanks so much.
Thank
See
you. Speak
ya.
soon. Enjoy your
Bye.
day.
Bye, you too. Bye.
Bye.